Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. Tonight's topic is anxiety, stress, and medical marijuana. This is a topic that we've done in the past, and one that's very important for a number of people that we know. It's especially in today's world. We've kind of been going through the last couple of years, and not to mention just life in general has been stressful and brought anxiety. And medical marijuana is something that definitely is something that can help and especially address that particular condition. So we're going to have a good topic and good discussion about that tonight. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce my co-host tonight, Saige. Saige, give me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. And also thanks for hosting this for us. I know it's a great topic. I love this topic. One of the reasons why I got into medical cannabis in the first place. So a little bit about me is I actually became one of the first patients in the state of Florida back in 2017 at the age of 17. So I was technically a pediatric patient. My mom was my caregiver at the time, and I started on low THC CBD products for simple anxiety, stress, some depression I was going through, and other health symptoms. Found some success through CBD and decided to dabble in some other products with some higher THC. As I started shopping for these products at Trulieve, of course, I saw that there was potential for myself in the industry and to make a career for myself. So I, 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, I applied to work at Trulieve in the dispensary as a consultant. Shortly 8 months later after that, in 2019, I became a community educator. So it was a great promotion there for me. And I got to explore different passions of mine in the cannabis industry. So as I, became more successful as a community educator for Trulieve, I decided to go back to school and start my graduate degree. So I took a step away from Trulieve for a little bit, did some work with my graduate degree, and through the graduate degree, I realized, Trulieve has my heart, and the medical cannabis industry has my heart, and that's where I belong. So 2 years later, here I am back again, and I'm ready to see what the future holds for me in the industry.
Super. Well, listen, it's fascinating to me that a lot of people get involved in medical cannabis for personal reasons. They're users themselves. And I think what it does, it adds a little bit of an accent to not only your learning and the importance of why you're doing what you're doing. And it's fascinating to me how so many people, have turned to cannabis as a solution, and how we're trying to hopefully wipe out or debunk the stigmas of the past. But more importantly, with certain conditions, it's something that's really important for a lot of people to be able to not only cope with, but deal with a lot of the things that are going on in today's world. I'd like to share the presentation a little bit. We have some slides to be used to be able to help not only prompt discussions, but also to be able to provide information for all of our viewers tonight. I do want to point out that tonight's webinar is being live streamed on Facebook, and you'll be able to catch it out there. As a follow-up to this, you will be getting an email that has a copy of the video, so you can watch it again or pass it on to your friends, copy of the presentation, some of the notes that are there, and of course, any of the discounts that are there. I do want to point out that this is part of the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. Tonight's topic is anxiety and stress, and next week's topic is one that's very important as well, which is dosing. Plus, we're getting into a number of different topics like pain management, arthritis, and a number of different things. I want to point out Saige and I are really here for a reason, and that is not only to provide information about anxiety and stress, but more importantly, to answer your questions. Please feel free to bring questions. You'll see right down over right about here, you'll see a little bubble, looks like two little bubbles that are sitting on top of each other that say Q&A. Please put any questions that you have in that area. We'll be monitoring that. There is a chat button. I think it's down over here somewhere, but you can see you can put questions into your chat, but we're going to really follow the Q&A buttons a lot more than the chat. So to give yourself priority on any questions you have, please put it in there. And there's no question that really is, there's no bad questions that you can ask tonight. We're really here to be able to help. I do want to point out that, yes, besides the Q&A button, and in fact, you're going to get some follow-up, I do want to point out that this webinar series is dedicated to an educator that really helped us quite a bit with the work at Trulieve, Jennifer Perdomo. And she's someone who helped quite a bit with our webinar series, has helped thousands of people. And unfortunately, we lost her at the end of last year to cancer. And this webinar series is dedicated to her. So I just wanted to point that out. I think, Saige, you knew her, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to say something. Thank you so much, honestly, for dedicating the series to Jennifer. Jenny was one of my good friends when I first started in the industry. she's one of the main reasons, if not the reason, why I love my job so much, and I feel so rewarded at the end of every single day. You know, she is one of a kind. There will be nobody else like her on this earth. And I just want to say thank you. Education was one of the biggest things that she really advocated for, especially in the Spanish-speaking community. So she's dearly missed, and you know, everything we do is in her name. So thank you, Marc.
I think we just want to give some respect for her for all the things that she did. So let's talk a little bit about anxiety and stress. I know that it's a topic that people talk about, and I always like to start these webinars by bringing up, what is the topic? What does it really mean? What is stress? What is anxiety? I know that stress is something that people look at. It's really the physical and mental response to some sort of an external condition. That could be physical. It could be somebody scares you. It could be somebody touches you, somebody hits you. There's a lot of different reasons that stress occurs. And stress can be good and stress can be bad. We'll talk about that a little bit. But stress is something that we have in our life, and it can actually be overwhelming sometimes. And what people also look at is, when they look at what anxiety really is the ongoing and escalated response to stress. So what's happening is you get anxious, you get concerned about things, you get worried about things. And I know that especially when we're going through this whole pandemic, which hopefully we're putting behind us. We're not over it, but we're pretty close to getting to it, I hope. That we have a situation where we're kind of just worried about everything that's going on out there. I know that my family and myself are always worried about just the safety of ourselves, our neighbors, our kids, that type of thing, especially when you hear about people and lose loved ones and find people that you really care about getting sick. So anxiety and stress really exist in the world. I do want to point out that if you are a little bit anxious, if you do have some stress, you're not alone. There's over 240 million people in the world, but it's actually a statistic before COVID came out was that 31% of the people in the United States are affected by stress or anxiety one way or another. And that's a very high number. I would be safe to say that number is probably a lot higher when you look at COVID and things that are out there. And you've probably seen some of that in your business, haven't you, Saige?
Absolutely. And I was going to touch on that with levels of stress and anxiety too. You know, a lot of people discount their stress and anxiety to just another part of life. Like, oh, I'm just I'm a new mom. That's just part of it. Well, sometimes yes, but I think it's important to note that, you're going through something and that's okay. And that there are things out there that can help you feel better. So, things as far as going to school, maybe you've had a crazy day and you have to go home and deal with your family and cook and clean, and you're, not looking for little things like that, where to you it might seem normal or just part of life. I think it's important to note that that can be, stress and anxiety as well. So.
Sure. And stress is not only something that it can put you a little bit out of sorts from the standpoint of your mental aspect and your approach, but also has a huge effect on your health that's out there. Examples that people have, and I'm not going to delve into this too much, but you get into people that are really nervous about maybe a medical exam, something that's coming up. That's something that I know a number of people I know really just stress about. Paying the bills. Today with the current situation, that is something that a lot of people worry about. Some people get anxious, for example, when they're taking a look at just having to go to the doctor and getting the information that's coming back from them. And then also just getting social environments. A lot of people are very concerned right now, very anxious about being in crowds. And I know that we took this very seriously during the COVID pass. We have a couple of grandkids, and I know that this was something that we really worried about, and it made us a little bit anxious to go out in crowds. And we didn't necessarily want to become hermits, but on the other side of the coin, it's kind of we're kind of worried about what's going on around the corner, and that's something that kind of puts everybody on edge, and not only you, but the people around you. I think that's something that we see that's out there. So my purpose of this slide is to have people realize that if you have some anxiety and you have some stress, you're not alone. It's something that's there, and we see a lot of people that have it there. What's interesting is when you look at anxiety and stress, what does the research say about cannabis helping with anxiety and stress? I think that's really, really important. And what we found out is, and we're going to talk a little bit about something called the endocannabinoid system, referred to as ECS. And it plays a very, very important role in regulating not only your anxiety and stress, but it also helps you with your mood. It helps you with your digestion. It helps you with your pain. There's a number of things that are out there. And also we found out that people that have a lot of stress, people have a lot of anxiety, for example, people with PTS, they've also reduced a reduction in the amount of anxiety-related symptoms when using medical cannabis. I think that's something that's really important. And I think it's not only important to take a look at what the research is saying about how it's helped with anxiety and stress and how it's helped with things like PTS and the different situations, but also we've also found that it's not only just the cannabis strains themselves, but a lot of the terpenes. Like we found of kind of looking at today, the terpenes are a really important part of the whole cannabis process. I think you've seen a little bit of that, haven't you, Saige?
Yes, and I was going to say the terpenes and endocannabinoid system, that's not anything new. I think we'll touch on that a little bit more moving forward, but this is not new. This is not something that, was just discovered. It might be, talked about a little bit more now, but this has been something that has been around. Terpenes are found in fruit, botanical flowers, plants, things like that. So, these are natural components. It's not made up, it's not make believe, it's not newly discovered. So that's important to note as well.
Sure. No, and I think that's really, really important to point out. When people say, is there research that's been done? The answer is yes. And I know that here in the United States with medical cannabis, especially cannabis or marijuana being a Schedule I drug, there's virtually no studies being done. But that doesn't mean that overseas there's not studies being done. In fact, there's a lot of studies being done. And if you look at our own PubMed, or where the doctors today publish all the articles, or researchers publish all the articles for the doctors, we find there's a number of articles that are out there. They're coming from Israel, they're coming from Germany, they're coming from Spain, France, and a number of places, Canada, for example, where they are doing a lot of research. I sure wish we in the United States would catch up to that research. We're doing more now, but we're only just scratching the surface compared to the other nations. But I want to point out there's a study that was done in January of 2020, was actually published, that talks about how the endocannabinoid system really can help with anxiety and stress. And we followed a number of different research studies. You'll get in the follow-up links to these studies, so you'll be able to check them out and take a look at them yourself. But the two major components of marijuana or cannabis is both CBD and then also THC. And this is where something that's really, really important. When you look at THC, for example, and you look at using THC to address anxiety and stress, in lower doses, THC helps a lot with anxiety and stress. However, THC is considered to be what they call bioptic, which means that if you get to a point where you reach what you call your therapeutic relief level, and then you go beyond it, once you cross over that other side, it actually can help bring the anxiety on. So it's kind of something that it's important to know your sweet spot, to know what your tolerance is for THC, because it can be both good and it can be bad. It's something that you really got to take a look at. It's out there, and it's really important to check what to know your tolerance to THC, so that it helps you be able to make it something that helps you and not something that works against you. And one of the things to be careful of is things like edibles. All right, Saige? Edibles is something that you can get to a high THC level very quickly, right?
Yeah. Also, something to add here is I like what you pointed out with the threshold of your tolerance, and cannabis is a very personalized medicine, and what works for one doesn't work for all as far as dosing goes. So I know he's going to go over dosing in the next week's or the next webinar coming up, but just to touch on it, dosing plays a huge part in finding relief with THC and CBD for anxiety and stress. And I think you're right in that you do have to play around with the amount of CBD and THC that you're using, but both can be helpful in easing the symptoms. So I always suggest, especially from a patient standpoint, starting with CBD products, like how I did when I was just starting out, and then slowly incorporating low amounts of THC as you go, so that you can get a better idea, one at a time, what's going to work best for you, and in combination with each other, the CBD and THC.
Sure, and this is what's really important. We know that both CBD and THC will help with anxiety and stress. One thing we're going to caution you on is just be careful with when you're using THC if you don't know your therapeutic relief level, because if you use too much of it, more is not better. More can actually cause the other side of the coin that's out there. And high doses of CBD do appear to help quite a bit with anxiety. That's something that we really know a lot about. One of the questions I get a lot is, gee, I'm going to use medical marijuana. Does it affect other drugs that I'm taking, for example? Does it really, will it affect what I'm doing? And do I have to stop? And can I take it in conjunction with other things? And what we found out is that medical cannabis typically doesn't interfere with other drugs. In fact, medical cannabis works with your body to be able to work and enhance the effects of a lot of the pharma drugs. Now, that being said, you've got to be extremely careful of any of the pharma drugs that have to do with blood pressure and your heart rate. And we'll talk about how cannabis works, which works through your bloodstream. But if you are taking medication for high blood pressure and also for your heart, you can still use medical cannabis, but it's important to consult not only your medical doctor, but also your medical marijuana doctor to make sure you adjust the amount that you're taking to be able to get that therapeutic relief that's really out there. So it's not something that stops you. It's just an extra step to go through to make sure that you are staying in an area that actually complements the medications that are out there. But almost every other kind of medication, it really is something that can help and not necessarily hurt.
Something too, since I am from Trulieve, and just something from the dispensary point of view, if you do go in and you shop at a dispensary, just make sure that you know that the consultants behind the registers, while they are extremely knowledgeable about cannabis and cannabis products and how they can make you feel, they're not medical professionals. They didn't go to medical school. So that's important to note too, is as well as your medical cannabis physician, you want to make sure that you consult with your, specialty physician or primary care physician, just to make sure that they know you're using cannabis and that, any interaction with your current medication is safe.
The more communications you have on this particular subject with the people that are helping you, both your doctors as well as your medical doctor and your medical marijuana doctor, and also when you're working with, like say, the people that are helping you in the dispensaries, that can help quite a bit. I will also point out that all dispensaries, and not all dispensaries, most dispensaries, but especially Trulieve, you have a consulting service that you can sign up for, and it's free. So you can call up, and you can go to the website, sign up and link up to the consulting service. And I highly recommend anyone, whether you're experienced or you're new to cannabis, please take advantage of that. I think it'll help you quite a bit. And what it'll do is it'll help you understand what medications, especially what Trulieve medications, are there to be able to help you with your particular condition.
Absolutely. And Trulieve, we actually offer virtual consultations as well as in person. So whatever you're more comfortable with is an option with that.
Sure. And when you hear about cannabis, you also hear something about cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are the properties within cannabis that really cause the relief to take place. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of point out, this is a slide of all the different conditions that cannabis can help with. I refer to cannabis as a medicine cabinet, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I just want to let you know, each of those little blue links in there are studies that have been done. So it's a fairly well-researched subject. It's not something that's new. Again, it's kind of new for here in the United States, but it is something that's been well researched, and for thousands of years, literally, people have been using cannabis to be able to provide medical relief for their particular conditions. So don't be shy, but be aware that there is research that's out there. Be comfortable that it's just something that people have looked at. And I tend to look at it in this particular direction. Cannabis is what I call a whole medicine cabinet. When you take a look at what it can do for you, it has over 450 medical properties that we know of, and they're still discovering more. We know it has over 120 different cannabinoids, which are the components that can help your body be able to provide its own, what they call, put you in homeostasis, or provide balance into your body, give you the health that you're looking for. We know there's over 200 cannabinoids, but we've only studied 120 of them. And there's over 200 terpenes, and we've really only studied about 100 of them. So there's a lot to this particular plant. Cannabis is not a drug. Cannabis is a medicine, is a plant that acts as a medicine. And when you go back and you look at the history of cannabis, literally for thousands of years, especially from Asia, from China all the way through India, through the Far East, here in the United States, through the Native Americans, we find that there's been a lot of uses of cannabis as a natural remedy to help us heal. And up until 1938, it was a major part of the U.S. pharmacopoeia that U.S. doctors use to be able to treat and help patients that are out there. Saige, one of the things about cannabis that makes it unique is, I know in the pharma world, everything's based on weight, and you take 2 pills and I'll see you in the morning kind of thing. It's not that way with cannabis at all. What's interesting is it works with your body, and it really works in concert with your body. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more, but it also brings out something called the entourage effect. The entourage effect means really 1 and 1 is 3, that THC helps you, CBD helps you, but when you put them both together, they both work together to actually bring out more medical benefits as you go forward. And we see that happening quite a bit. Not to mention, you may take it for one reason, like you have for arthritis or for anxiety and stress, and what you find out is your glaucoma goes away. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the entourage effect is just as important for cannabis as the actual cannabinoids themselves. Is that right?
Absolutely. The entourage effect is something that you obtain by consuming multiple cannabinoids of the plant, not just THC and CBD, but all of the other ones, THCV, CBG, THCA, those kinds of things. And that comes from the whole plant. So that's with your whole flower, with your Rick Simpson oil, the full spectrum oils, that kind of thing. So something where the whole plant is protected and it's not just singular CBD or singular THC, but the plant working together.
Right. And I think that's really, really important. What's interesting is when you look at our bodies, we have what's called a central nervous system, or a nervous system in general. This to me, I kind of call it, it's the cell phone system within our body. It's where your body, something happens, and through the nervous system that you have, it goes up through your spine, it tells your brain, and it communicates the problems that are out there. What's fascinating is we've known about the nervous system for a long time, but we really didn't know much about the endocannabinoid system. And the reason I say that is because when you have a problem, when your nerves say, oh, gee, we have a problem here, it tells your brain, Houston, we have a problem. What does Houston do about it? Well, what Houston does is Houston turns that over to the endocannabinoid system. And that's what really triggers your body producing endocannabinoids. Your own body produces them. And then it's sent to that part of your body that really helps you manage all the different functions that you have, which means appetite, inflammation, your immune system, your anxiety, your mood, pain. This is all managed by the endocannabinoid system. So they work one in one. And I just find it interesting that, especially in the last 20, 25 years, we're learning a lot more about the endocannabinoid system, but a lot of doctors didn't learn this in medical school. So it's still a little bit new for them while it's out there, but the effects of it are definitely are felt by a lot of people. And it's definitely something that's very, very real that we've really been able to tap into, and hopefully gives us a lot of promise for the future.
Absolutely.
So, but one of the things that triggers this whole thing is, as I mentioned earlier, your body, once you realize there's an issue that's there, your body will say, Houston, we have a problem. It produces the endocannabinoids, and that actually goes and they get distributed to that part of your body that is trying to address that issue. Now, what they found with cannabis is it produces something called phytocannabinoids. And what phytocannabinoids are is they match the exact structure of the endocannabinoids. And that's really, really important because they actually come in and can complement the body and provide the body the aid and the assistance that's there. Let me be very, very specific. I'm a senior citizen, and my body doesn't produce endocannabinoids like it did when I was 20 and 30 years old. So when I have issues that have to do with inflammation, that have to do with anxiety, that has to do with stress, that have to do with just my general condition, it's important that I have enough, not only my body produces enough endocannabinoids, but your body has access to enough phytocannabinoids, which are an exact match of the endocannabinoids, to address that particular condition. And that's what's unique about cannabis. It really helps, it works with your body, and it helps your body be able to mimic the different conditions and mimic the conditions that help with the binding of the receptors that address that particular situation and help you get the relief that you're really looking for. And we've seen that quite a bit. Yes,
well, and I kind of compare the endocannabinoid system to almost homeostasis. So people have that anxiety, have that stress, and at certain points of their life and circumstances, it gets more or less. And I think that does play a lot into kind of where you're at with the homeostasis and what is that endocannabinoid system lacking. And then you replenish it with your CBD products and your THC products, and you kind of find yourself more in an equilibrium, a more level state. And I think that's why a lot of people find relief and find success through cannabis products, is because something in there was lacking, or they didn't have enough of something, to remain in that equilibrium state. So it explains why people, find relief that way.
Sure. And I know in my family, we have dealt with anxiety and stress. I know if I have members of my family that depression is something that they worry about, and it's something they have to manage. And what they found is by being able to use cannabis, some high CBD, low THC cannabis products, it really has changed their whole attitude, their whole mindset. In fact, one of my family members told me it's kind of interesting that she's finally, for the first time, seeing what people who are happy are all about. It really helps with quite a bit. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, again, she was a senior citizen as well, getting enough of the relief, getting enough of the phytocannabinoids to complement the endocannabinoids in your system is something that really helps you be able to address that situation. It helps quite a bit to put you back in what we call the balance of your body, where you feel good. That's also called homeostasis that's out there. Now, the other question becomes, you hear about CBD, you hear about THC. There's a whole bunch of cannabinoids. As I mentioned, there's 120 of them that have been studied. There's 200 of them that have been identified. When you get into the whole medical cannabis world, you get into the cannabis world, you hear about CBD, THC, THCA, THCG, CBDA. You'll hear about a number of these things. We have a set webinar at the end of the quarter, at the end of June, that talks about each of these different cannabinoids. If you're interested, please join us. But really, they really have specific purposes, and they help you with a number of different things. And what I want to do is I want to point out a couple of those, starting with what I call the Entourage Effect. I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and I can't come back and point out how important this is, where the cannabinoids working with the terpenes and the flavonoids really provide, like 1 and 1 is 3. It really helps you be able to address a particular situation. One of the things, for example, is if you're looking at using medical cannabis and you're trying to figure out where your therapeutic relief level is, you want to know how much CBD and how much THC I can take. What's interesting is by using CBD, if you take too much THC and you begin to feel anxious and you get some negative effects, by using some THC or CBD, it lessens the psychotropic effect and really brings you back down into more of a balanced state that's out there. And you've seen that a little bit, haven't you, Saige?
That's great. Yeah, CBD stays in my medicine cabinet. I actually have multiple bottles, scattered throughout my life, but there's always one that stays in the medicine cabinet because that one is purely for what I call emergencies only. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes, I do take a little bit too much THC, and CBD is there to help me bring me right back to the happy place, like you said. So that's another thing too, is, having CBD on hand at all times can kind of help you with those psychoactive effects if you're, looking to stay more on the medium to mild side of the psychoactive effects, and you really just want the THC to help with pain or sleep. The CBD is always, it can't hurt to take more CBD. So that's always a good thing to have in the medicine cabinet.
And what we've learned is that part of the plant is not only the cannabinoids, but also the terpenes. And terpenes really help to be able to fit it. When you have receptors in your body, the question is, how does the endocannabinoids and the phytocannabinoids fit with the receptors? And this is where the terpenes come into play. They actually mold and help be able to fit those cannabinoids in with that particular receptor. So we'll talk a little bit about the receptors in just a minute. But terpenes play as much of a role, if not probably one of the most important roles, as the strains themselves when you look at cannabis. And we'll talk a little bit about terpenes, but I want to introduce that concept to you because it's going to be important. If you have anxiety and stress, the question is, what products do I take? I tend to look at more of the terpene profile than the strain profile, because once you get the terpenes right, the strains will fall into place. And I think that's something that's important to point out. And you and I talked about in our practice session, Saige, about how important that is.
We did. Yeah, and that's kind of where the conversation too comes with the, categorization of strains, sativa, indica hybrid, what makes strain sativa or indica or hybrid leaning, and it's that terpene profile. So you're 100% right.
Right. And traditionally, when people talk about cannabis, especially medical cannabis, one of the things they talk about is THC, and they talk about CBD. Let me go down here, THC and CBD, which we see over here. And we know that the CHC and CBD receptors deal with the CB1 and CB2 receptors down over here. We've seen that, and there's a lot of discussion on that. What we've discovered over the last couple of years is that CBD also affects other receptors in the body. And I have some of these receptors that are out there. People may not have heard about them, may not know about them. Let me kind of demask them a little bit. That's out there. These are receptors that regulate, for example, our blood pressure. It helps regulate the temperature of our body. Helps regulate inflammation over here, right in here. It helps regulate your body temperature. Which body temperature also helps with pain. It also helps with a lot of the psychotic effects that are out there that are there. We know that CBD goes in and affects those receptors. In fact, there's a lot of people that say that it affects those receptors and does more relief to those receptors than it actually does to the CB2 receptor, which is famous for. But CBD and THC have a tremendous positive effects on your body by working with the receptors to help your body be able to manage itself and put itself in a healthy state. So let's talk about something that really helps the CB1 and CB2, the THC and CBD in your body, and that is the terpenes. What's interesting is I mentioned that the receptors are being addressed by the phytocannabinoids and the endocannabinoids, but really when the phytocannabinoids come into your body, how does your body handle it? How does your body know and be able to process it so you're going to be able to take advantage of those particular cannabinoids? And that's where terpenes come into play. And terpenes are part of the plant that help protects it from being able from other animals eating them. It helps the plant stay healthy, but also once it's being processed, it actually helps you become healthy. And we hear a lot about terpenes when we hear about essential oils. It's fundamentally the same concept that's out there, but there's a number of terpenes. Like I mentioned, there's over 100 of them that we know and being studied. There's 200 of them that are known, but these are kind of the big 6 that are out there. And a couple of them, especially in anxiety and stress, that we should pay attention to. And as I mentioned, if you can go into your dispensary and you can say, I'm looking for this kinds of terpenes because of my anxiety and stress, it'll really help them be able to identify the products that can help you with your particular anxiety and stress. And Saige, tell me a little bit about the terpenes that are out there and some of your favorites.
Yeah, I'll start with a couple. So initially, the first ones my eyes go to are limonene and linalool. Those two are actually very common in a lot of my cosmetic products. So my first exposure to both of those was standing in my shower, washing my hair, looking at the back of the shampoo bottle, and I noticed it, and that was kind of my first exposure. Like, oh wait, this is in more than just cannabis. I recognize that. What is that little ingredient right there? So just to talk about, they're very different in their effects that they produce, but both commonly found in fragrant cosmetic products. So limonene is more an uplifting type of terpene. It can help elevate mood and relieve stress. That one you do need to be a little bit careful of if you do have anxiety. In larger doses, it can increase anxiety in certain cases. Not for everybody, but that is something that happens sometimes. Where linalool, on the other hand, is quite the opposite, found in lavender smelling products, and it is more sedative. So you'll see those oil diffusers and things like that. That's kind of why you feel so sleepy, is because it has a lot of that linalool. So those are found in predominantly indica strains or hybrid, indica-leaning hybrid strains as well. Another one that I really like is myrcene. Again, another sedative one found in a lot of indica strains. There is this, I don't even want to say a wives' tale. It's true that if you eat mango while you're, consuming cannabis, it actually increases the effects because of the myrcene in mango and sometimes found in cannabis. So that's a cool little fun fact if you haven't heard that one yet. Those are probably my top 3. I will pick on eucalyptol a little bit because I do notice that Saige is one of its sources, so I had to say it. That one I'm not too familiar with in terms of strains and what strains it's found in. But as you can see, it can help decrease blood pressure. And another one that I find interesting is improving cognitive function for those with dementia or any kind of memory inhibitors. So those are kind of my top terpenes that I like to talk about. Of course, there's many more that are just on the screen, but these are kind of the main ones that you'll see. Marc did mention that because they do have an effect on how you feel when you consume cannabis, it's important to be aware of strains that you really like or strains that you're not too fond of, and be aware of the terpene profile for those strains so that you can find similar strains that you like or stay away from strains that have a similar terpene profile to those that you don't like. So terpenes are huge.
Yeah. So for example, caryophyllene over here is really, really good for being able to help with anti-anxiety. It's something antidepressant and anti-anxiety. Getting a nice, if you're trying to address anxiety and stress, getting using a product that has a caryophyllene in it is really, really important as well. One of the other ones that's really good for anxiety is pinene, and pinene has really been good for that. Pinene is very popular, found in a number of different products. Now, pinene also is kind of bioptic. There's something where you got to be careful because pinene is really good for anxiety, but pinene also brings back memories. So if you're dealing with something like PTS, pinene is something you may want to be very careful with, if try to avoid, just to make sure you don't get yourself into a situation that in that particular terpene that's there. Again, we're going to talk to you about as you're getting into using cannabis, go low and go slow. Experiment with these things, try these things to find out how they work. Because every person's body is different and they react differently, but it's something that can help you and not help you. But I know that high concentrations of myrcene, for example, make you very relaxed. Lower concentrations obviously will help you quite a bit. It won't put you in so much of a sedative state. So terpenes have a lot to do with how the actual products work themselves. And I think that's something that's really, really important. I think as you take a look at, again, people ask the question of, you know, what cultivars, what terpenes actually work for anxiety and stress. And I use the word cultivar, and I'll explain that what it is in a minute. But what we've learned is that the terpene profile and the strain profile together have what they call a fingerprint. It's something that really defines what that particular product's going to do. And when you're dealing with your dispensary, find out what the terpene profile, find out what the strain profile is. And what it'll also do, it'll tell you something that it'll tell you what expected results you should get for when you're using it. And that's what we call a cultivar. When we put both of those together, that's out there. There's a lot of, I know when I got into the business, everybody said, use this strain, use that strain. And then about the last couple of years, I took a look at some of the terpene profiles behind it. And I found out that Jack Herrera is not Jack Herrera is not Jack Herrera. As I was dealing with the different strains from different dispensaries, their terpene profiles are different. And so they would have a different effect on your body that was out there. So again, don't not only look at the strain, but also the terpenes have a lot to do, in my mind, match the terpenes to your particular condition. And then what will happen is the dispensaries will actually help you find the products that'll provide the relief you need for your particular condition that's out there. But especially with anxiety and stress, dealing with what they call a Cbd dominant strains really are important. Saige, you want to take a couple of these and tell us which might be recommended for, and all these are good strains for anxiety and stress, but there are a couple of them that you might want to highlight.
Yeah, so I think the first three I do recognize as being familiar for Trulieve strains. I'll touch on those. I know ACDC is a very popular CBD dominant strain, very good for inflammation. If you have a lot of anxiety and you want to start with something low, ACDC is a great CBD strain. Touching on ACDC as well as Harley Quinn is a good CBD dominant strain as well, if you can get a hold of that one, and Remedy. So you'll see those in your Trulieve stores. Granddaddy Purple is a very popular THC dominant indica strain. A lot of our patients love Granddaddy Purple. You know, good for nighttime, good for stress. Does make you feel a little bit sleepy. I like this indica strain because for me, it makes me sleepy, but not to where I'm knocked out, you know, in 15 minutes or something. It relaxes me, but it's not anything too crazy, at least in my experience. And then Jack Herrera is a very, very popular sativa strain. Like Marc was saying, you know, one Jack Herrera at this dispensary might be a little bit different from the Jack Herrera at another dispensary. That's completely normal, all due to the terpene profile. So something I wanted to add onto what Marc was saying was the certificate of analysis, COA. The lab testing is super, super important. Right. I can't speak for any other, you know, dispensaries, but I can speak for Trulieve and say, you know, that is one way that you can take note of what terpenes are in your strains. I know some people might have that question, is how do I find out what terpenes are in the strains that I like or don't like? And that will be found through our lab tests. So that can be found on our website. You just make sure you type in the batch number for the product and all of that information pops up. So this is important when it comes to journaling, taking a note, writing it down on your phone, whatever you need to do on, you know, what strains you really enjoy. That way you can go back and kind of, like I was saying, navigate some other similar strains.
Right. I mean, other strains that you can take a look at here. You talked about Remedy. I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier. Sour Diesel, OG Kush, you know, are also products that are really, really good. Remedy is, especially for anxiety and stress, is particularly helpful because, again, it's more of a CBD dominant strain than anything else. And I know that, again, whether you're doing the consultation or you're visiting in person or even on the phone talking to your Trulieve representative, they can help you identify the products that fall into these categories that help you with anxiety and stress. And a lot of times I know when I first got involved with medical cannabis and I would describe my condition to the bud tender, they would come back and say, here's the product you need. And I always wondered how they knew that. And when I asked, they told me, oh, I look at the terpene profile. So I learned at an early time that that's really, really important, that's out there. But these are some of the products that can be used. And again, every person is different. You'll have different reactions to the different products that are out there, but these will put you on the dartboard. Then the question is, how do you find that? How do you find that spot in the center that really helps you quite a bit that's out there? So,
I want to
one of the
mention
other-
something real quick. Sorry, not to cut you off, but myrcene, something that I was talking about, and just terpenes in general. When you're talking about terpenes, I just thought of it when you said, everybody's different. Is, myrcene, it is sedating and it does make you a little bit sleepy. That is the general characteristic for the terpene. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody with high levels of anxiety, if they consume myrcene, it honestly might make them feel more normal and able to, go to work or be productive or go on a walk or hang out with their family. So just because, we say, a strain is mostly, sedating or mostly relaxing, that doesn't mean that, you can't use it during the day or you can't be, up and going and functional. Everybody's different, like Marc was saying. So I think that's important to note too, because I know people that, consume a lot of indica and they feel more normal, less anxious, and they're able to, function more normally on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to add that.
Sure, and that's a good point that's out there. Now, some of it also has to do with how do you take it itself. There are different dosing forms. What makes cannabis unique also is, as I mentioned in a lot of the pharma drugs, it's take 2 pills, we'll see in the morning, or take some of these drops, or take a little bit of this liquid and we'll see you in the morning kind of thing. Cannabis has been around for a long time, and there's a lot of different ways that it's being used. And it also, as you're using different routes of administration, the ways you use it, they also have different, what we call over here, you call time, how long does it take to take effect? And then how long does it actually work itself? And I know that there's a lot of different ways of taking it from the different ways that it's been applied over the years. So tell us about a couple of the top ones you looked at. Tell us about sublingual drops and vapes, for example.
Yeah, so I will start with the sublingual drops at the top, tinctures, oils, really anything administered under the tongue is going to be a quick acting oral product. Sublingual drops and tinctures differ from something like edibles and capsules, because when you put the drop under your tongue, or you put a liquid under your tongue, it's absorbed a lot more quickly than when you eat something and have to go through the whole digestion process. You're also absorbing more of the dose or of the medicine under your tongue, whereas you lose some of that nutritional benefit as it's digesting through your body. So your body's taking a lot of energy to break down the capsule or break down the edible. At the very end, it might be a 30 milligram capsule or 30 milligram, edible, but you're really not getting that full 30 milligrams after the entire process. So I really like the sublingual drops and tinctures, quick acting, like I said, and you are getting the majority of that medicine compared to digesting it. That's also good to take in the morning to kind of keep you lasting through the day, or again at night, taking a sublingual drop at night to keep you asleep, not just get you asleep. Inhalation, moving down there, is great for quick acting. That's something if you're going through an extreme panic attack, if you do have post-traumatic stress and something comes up, that's going to be a great way to kind of immediately take care of the situation. Let's say, for example, at nighttime, you have a lot of stress, a million things running through your mind, aka me every single night. The inhalation method is a great way to kind of start immediately subduing those thoughts and kind of getting into a more relaxed state without having to wait an hour for an edible to kick in, or 30 minutes for a tincture drop to fully take into effect. So the inhalation method is definitely going to be the quickest method out of all.
Yeah, and I think something that's important here. 2 things. One is using the sublingual drops that goes underneath your tongue, that goes directly into your bloodstream. And as we mentioned, it'll take anywhere from 15 to 40 minutes to work. And for me, it's about 20 to 25 minutes, for example. And I typically find it lasts about 4 to 5 hours, to give you an idea. But for example, in the morning when I wake up, I have 7 herniated discs in my neck, and it's no picnic. And I sometimes wake up in pain. And so I do take some sublingual drops. It's on my nightstand, but also I have a vape pen. And I take a couple of hits out of my vape pen, and it's no magic. Everybody knows one of my favorites is a Trulieve True Stick 1-to-1-to-1 product.
Oh yeah,
that has really helped. Yeah, it's really helped quite a bit. And the reason I do that is because I take a hit from my vape pen, 1 or 2 hits, and my pain level, no matter where it is, will go down to below a 1. And that's really, really important. And it does it immediately. And I do have to tell you, the first time that happens, I remember the first time I did that, I said to my wife, "This is really crazy. It's like somebody took a rag, wiped my back, and the pain went away." And this has been almost 5.5 years later. It still does it every morning, and I'm still amazed by it. It's something that's really, really there. But you can mix and match these these routes of administration. And I think it's very, very important. But also, vape pens are different from cigarettes. There are no carcinogens in them. Vaping goes into your lungs. That's true. And anything that goes into your lungs, you've got to be very, very careful. But vaping has less of a harmful effect on your lungs than anything else. I know that there are, we've probably heard from the pharma world, a lot of people that used inhalers and for a lot of different conditions. And I'm talking about the pharma world. That really was something that really helped by bringing things into your lungs. The same thing happens in the cannabis world. It really helps you and doesn't necessarily hurt you that much. Now, what I'm saying is if you have CPOD or things like that, that doesn't mean you don't have to be careful. You do, okay? But I wouldn't avoid it and I wouldn't be afraid of it. Just be aware that this is a different scenario than the cigarette smoke that we've kind of dealt with in the past. And also today, I'll address the issue of vape pens. We had some bad actors that came into the market about four years ago. And these are unregulated products. They weren't dispensaries that did the quality checks. They were sold in stores that were, I wouldn't say less than reputable, but I'll call them head shops is the best way of putting it. And from uninformed users. And this caused deaths. These products were poorly made. They had chemicals in them that were poor, and they were unregulated. This was from somebody that you couldn't trust. When you're using any medication, whether it's pharma or cannabis, deal and work with a reputable vendor. And when you say, what is a reputable vendor? Check the certificate of analysis. You talk about the COA. Find out that it has been tested. For example, Trulieve products have been tested 3 times, twice in-house and one from a source outside of Trulieve. You know the product is safe. It's regulated by the state. And that's why the gas station products, I'm not against the gas station products. I just say be very careful. Make sure that they have the COAs and make sure the COAs are current. I did a study where I was looking at Delta 8 products, for example, and I found out in my neighborhood with 8 places or 5 places that actually sold it, only 2 of them had what they call COAs that were current. That what's in the product matched what was actually being out there. The rest of them were all bad actors from Asia and a number of different places that were just trying to dump products in the market. And that's what we're trying to combat, is really buy from a reputable vendor. I think you had some comments about that when we did the practice session, Saige.
Yeah, absolutely. The lab testing, I'm a huge advocate for. I will talk about it until my last breath. Anytime you buy any product, any cannabis product, for that matter, you always want a proof of test, especially because it is a plant. It is being manufactured into different products, and I think it's very important to know where this is medicine, so where your medicine is coming from. I know Marc said you have nothing against gas station products. I do. I have a lot against it because I do think that when there's injury or sickness or death that comes from these products, that gives the real reputable companies or products a bad name, and it ultimately scares people away from even trying it. So really important to know about the COA. Wherever you shop, hopefully it's Trulieve. Always ask for that COA or how to find the lab test. It's very, very important. Also consider, what lab test is it? If it's, 420labs.com is the test, like maybe, consider the source. So lab testing is huge.
But also getting back to the routes of administration, having the cannabis and having cannabis get into your bloodstream through its sublingual drops is great. You have obviously the inhalation products, but people sometimes like capsules. People like taking the pill. My mother is on medical cannabis. She got on it when she was 88 years old, and she's 93 today and still taking it. And her comfort zone is capsules, and that's fine. Be aware the capsules are absorbed in your body different than sublingual drops. It goes into your stomach. And so by going into your stomach, you'll notice in the chart that's over here, it takes a lot longer to work. When it gets absorbed into your stomach, it's what I call an edible. And edibles, for example, work, not only just edible products, but also for the capsules. It takes a while to be able to have it take effect. So be careful. We have a saying with edibles that about the time you think that they're not working and you take another one is about the time they start working. And so it's easy to be able to take too much and maybe get that high that you may not want from these particular products. But the good news about it, the capsules, is they'll last 4 to 6 hours. They have a long time that they do work. They're absorbed again differently. I don't want to get into all the mechanics behind it, but I do want you to know that they are very, very effective, and they are definitely something to take a look at. But be cool, man. Just relax. I understand it takes some time. Have some patience. If you don't have patience, don't use them. The best way of putting it that's out there. I think topicals also have something that come into play of that, because topicals, like the vape pens, work almost immediately. And you have truly you have a great topical product.
We do. We have a great topical cream. I'll actually have to do a shout out to my mom. I know she's watching me right now too. Hi, Mom. I actually got my mom to finally experiment with just the topical, and she loves it. She, talks about it all the time. I think she's trying to recruit some of her friends now to trying products like that. And the topical cream, I use it frequently. I'm on my feet a lot, and so I'll put it on the bottom of my feet. It feels very similar to a biofreeze icy hot kind of feeling. So it doesn't give you a psychoactive feeling at all. It just penetrates the skin transdermally and gives you that relief locally. So lower back pain, neck pain. Like for me, bottoms of my feet. I know for women, menstrual cramps, endometriosis on the lower stomach area. So many different uses for that topical cream. I know some people, I remember Jenny, she used to rub it on her temples when she got really bad migraines or headaches. I've done that before as well. So many different uses of that topical cream. And like you were saying, in conjunction with the sublingual drops and the inhalation method and the flower and, whole spectrum oils, and in collaboration with all of these things, the topical is that one extra step for pain relief. So.
Yeah, and they help quite a bit. I know I've used, my wife uses the topical. She just loves the Trulieve topical cream. That's on her nightstand. It's there, and I know that I found it. I really like it as well. I as a senior citizen, my body's not 20 anymore. I did get into a couple of athletic endeavors. I'm kind of into a martial art right now, which may sound crazy at my age, but when I push my body too much, I really am happy that I do have the truly topical cream around to be able to help me with that particular situation. It helps quite a bit, not just for my back, but for my knees and a few other areas that are out there. So it's something to pay attention. Something that really, really helps that's out there. Tell me a little bit about the sprays, flowers, and concentrates.
Yeah, so sprays, I'm not too familiar with. I know that there are products out there in the cannabis market, but that's going to be very similar to a drop or something orally. Again, no digestive process there. Flower, of course, that's the most talked about, the most common, the most known, route of administration. People, you say cannabis, they think joint, they think, bong or whatever it may be. So flowers, just the whole plant. Cannabis flower. If you eat the flower whole, you're not going to feel a psychoactive effect. It does have to be heated to feel the effects of THC. So I'm sure there's plenty of benefit from eating the whole plant matter, but I would not suggest it. That is meant to be inhaled. So heated and inhaled, you can vaporize it or smoke it. There's different accessories out there.
I think also let's not underestimate using flower in cooking.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've seen some varying stats about how much flour is actually being used for cooking and not necessarily by smoking and things like that. And I do know that when you take a joint and you light that joint at 500 degrees, you're burning off about half of the cannabinoids, all the flavonoids, and all the terpenes. And so my recommendation is use a vape pen as opposed to flour if you're looking at it from a medical standpoint. Although, as my good friend Jeff Dumont and I talk about from the Grateful Veterans, he has the therapeutic effect of rolling a joint is probably just as good for him as actual smoking it himself. But I do know that flour is really good in the cooking process. And again, if you don't heat it up above 300 degrees, but you need 300 degrees of the flour to be able to trigger the THC and the CBD. But below that, you get THCA and CBDA, which helps with inflammation and helps with pain. I myself will take some bud and drop it in my coffee in the morning. And literally let it sit in the coffee for a minute or two. And what it's doing is just getting the THCA and CBDA, pulling it out of the product and giving me my pain relief and giving my inflammation relief, but it doesn't trigger the THC, so I don't get the high. And I know in my job where I have to really stay, I work on the internet and I work on a number of websites and I work on seminars like this. I have to be somewhat lucid, although I could probably not be. But I guess the issue really comes down into, it really helps me with a lot of medically without the risk of getting high. That's something that's no trick that people have used that's out there. And again, that's a good use for flower that you don't necessarily have to roll it up and smoke it, that's out there.
Right. Absolutely.
And a lot of the concentrates that they're making today, especially the rosins and resins, they really protect and they keep the THC, the terpenes and the flavonoids that are out there. If people say, why would you use a concentrated version of the flower? Well, I think there's three reasons. One is you do get the cannabinoids, and you do get not only the cannabinoids, but the flavonoids and also the terpenes, but also you can control the temperature at which it's used. By being able to control the temperature, keeping it below 400 degrees, it triggers different terpenes and triggers different cannabinoids. I know that when I use my concentrates, I use either the medium setting, or if I'm using a vaporizer for the flower, I'll typically keep it at 350 to 360 degrees, because I get the maximum amount of flavonoids, terpenes, and cannabinoids that really help me that's out there. When it gets to be too high, I tend to lose a little bit of that. And of course, I'm looking for relief that's out there. And concentrates give you the capability to be able to control that. But that's there.
Right. And I like the facts with the concentrates too. You know, that it is stronger, a little bit stronger in concentration, of course, as far as THC goes. But the vaporizing method can sometimes be a little bit more discreet than flower, for instance. So I know that's a really big part of the concentrates that I like, is that sometimes the smell can be a little bit more discreet than flower. Not all the time, but a little bit more discreet than flower. And with the concentrates, since it is vaporized, again, quick onset effect there and quick relief. So that's another thing too. Not much waiting there with the concentrates if it's being vaporized.
Right. I think a lot of people use concentrates are typically used by people who've been around cannabis for a while, because you do have to load it into some sort of a pen device. But a lot of reasons why people use it is because it's cheaper, and because they're able to really access the medical product, the cannabis plant that you're really looking for. So there's a number of things that are there. We kind of went through the routes of administration very quickly. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it going forward, but let's answer a few questions that are out there. We had a question from anonymous. It says, you mentioned blood pressure meds. What about beta blockers? And how about the SSRIs? The answer is you're right on. These beta blockers fall in that category as well. When you're going to use a beta blocker, talk to your doctor, let him know you're using cannabis. Talk to your medical marijuana doctor, let him know that this is what you're going to be doing. It's not a matter that you can't use them, you can. But what they'll do is they'll probably back down a little bit on the amount of pharma medication that you're using, and they'll probably tell you about your medical cannabis doctor will actually help you find some medical cannabis products that really help complement your particular condition that's out there. So yes, it falls in that category. This is the one area that I think we have to be really cautious. I know I had a friend of mine who was big on, well, gee, I'll just smoke a joint and and I'll get relief. And he had a heart transplant done over 12 years ago, which I found to be amazing. And he's still alive and was smoking joints. And I basically said, Edwin, you do realize that you have to be careful about what you're doing. And he had no idea. And so we put him on a whole different regime right now to really help him be able to complement the medications that he's taken in his situation. I just felt he was kind of rolling the dice out there by just smoking a joint and just not knowing what's in there, type of thing. But the answer to your question is yes, be very careful. It's something that's there, and it is managed. Edwin is doing very well right now, so and hope to be around for a lot longer. One of the other questions is can CBD and cannabis help reduce the aggressiveness in someone with Alzheimer's? Cannabis is very helpful with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, what they found is that basically there's a coating that gets put on the inside of your brain and inside your skull, and this is what causes a lot of the Alzheimer's effect. And CBD, especially high concentrations of CBD with THC, does help reduce the amount. It doesn't get rid of it. It won't reverse Alzheimer's, but it will help reduce it quite a bit, and it help people manage that situation. Aggressiveness is one of the things that it does help address. Now, be patient. It's taken a while for your body to develop that particular situation. It may take 2 weeks to maybe sometimes as much as a month before you actually see the effects, because it's something that your body needs to be able to candidly dig through a lot of things that's been built up to be able to get to the point where it's helping with the therapeutic relief. But the answer to your question is yes, it can. just be patient. But again, I would recommend something that's high in CBD. You do need to have some THC. You got to be more than the hemp level that's out there. You know, a good 9-to-1 or a 12-to-1, something like that could help quite a bit in that particular situation.
I'd like to recommend a product from Trulieve. It's the Nano Tincture, and it is, like you were saying, Mark, an 8-to-1. We have actually two different types, a 1-to-8 and an 8-to-1. But in this specific instance, I would recommend that 8-to-1 CBD dominant Nano Tincture. The nano technology helps it absorb quicker than a normal tincture. So I agree. High CBD, low THC. The CBD definitely will help with aggressiveness. I've seen it help with actually children with aggression, with ADHD and certain behavioral issues. So I like what you said, Mark. That ratio is super important. I think a sublingual drop is super important for quick acting. That's something that's easy to administer. So check out that 8-to-1 nanotechnology tincture too.
Yeah, and I should point out, when you hear something like 8-to-1, 1-to-8, you know, what are we talking about? The first number is the amount or the formula of CBD in the product. The second is the amount of THC in the product. So when you say 8-to-1, there's 8 parts of CBD and 1 part of THC. Vice versa, 1-to-8 is 1 CBD to 8 THC that's out there. So you really want to be able to take a look at the ratios that are there. I know my wife uses a product that's actually a 12-to-1, for example, because she deals with anxiety and stress, and she found that's where her therapeutic relief level is in that particular area. And that comes from, again, going low and going slow and trying different formulas to being able to get there. But the answer to your question is yes, it should be able to help. Again, with Alzheimer's, it should be able to help that's out there and be able to help address a lot of that. Now, I know that, let's see, I think it was Linda asked the question. It says, can terpenes be purchased separately? If so, where? The answer is yes, they can, but you've got to go to highly reputable firms. One of the things is Treadwell Farms, for example, is one of my favorite places for terpenes. Now, I'm not recommending that you go to Treadwell Farms and buy a whole bunch of terpenes. And the reason for that is terpenes are very volatile. And so how you handle them is very, very important. So that's why you need to have, for example, the professionals at Trulieve know how to take the terpenes, how to blend them into the products, and be able to have them work for you. And that's something that's there. I know some people that have picked up some terpenes, and candidly, because of the volatility, the product was spoiled before they could actually use it themselves. And I know a number of medical practitioners, or cannabis practitioners, I should say, that do try to play in this particular area. But again, stick to, and every one of them will tell you, stick to quality products that are there. Again, I'm going to recommend Treadwell Farms. Are kind of my go-to that's out there. But there are others, and I'll actually in the follow-up, I'll get you a couple of places that you can take a look at. But the most important is not just that you can buy them, but how do you handle them and what you do with them. My recommendation is, as an amateur, unless you're in the business producing cannabis products, trust your dispensary. They know how to handle them, and you're not going to spend a lot of money that gets spoiled in being able to try to use these things. Saige, how do you feel about that?
I don't know much about purchasing terpenes outside of dispensary, especially because, I'm representing Trulieve, so I don't want to say anything that, I'm not too sure about. I have seen at certain conferences and exhibitions terpene companies out there, so I know that it is out there and it's possible. But my advice is just make sure it's a reputable company and that you talk to somebody knowledgeable. That's really my two cents on that.
Sure. Yeah, and that's again, at Treadwell Farms. I think Lee put in the chat the link to them. The quality firms that are out there. I know that in the practitioners that I've worked with that work with adding terpenes to a lot of the cannabis products, their biggest issue is to learn how to handle them, and I think that there's a trick to it. So leave it to the professionals for right now, but just be aware that they are available. That's out there. One of the other questions that came in through the chat. It says, does tinctures work for nerve damage in the neck and face? And it's from Dallas Golf on Facebook. The answer is yes. I have 7 herniated discs in my neck, and when I had it from an auto accident, and it left me 2 herniated discs in my back. One of the things that you really never want to hear is when your doctor walks in and says, "You're my PB, personal best." I've seen 6 herniated discs, but not 7. That's something that you really don't want to hear. But it's to the point where it's inoperable. Let's put it this way: the chance of an operation being successful is less than 20%. So I've got to learn how to live with it, and I've learned how to live with it by using medical cannabis. And one of the things is the CBD part, especially when I use a higher concentration of CBD to THC, helps quite a bit to relieve the inflammation. And by relieving the inflammation, what it's been able to do is relieve the pain that's out there. It's not just going after the pain; it's also going after the inflammation as well. Being a senior citizen, like all senior citizens, I had to have a knee replaced. And for anybody who's done that, that's no picnic. And what I found out was when I was first using the products, I was using a high concentration of THC to address the pain and low CBD. And I thought that was the right formula. And working with some of the doctors, we thought that was the right formula. And what I found out was it was more the opposite. The more CBD, higher concentrations of CBD to THC, reduce the inflammation of the knee. By reducing that inflammation, reduce the pain, and it actually provided as much, if not better, relief than a high concentration of THC products, which I found really interesting. Now, that being said, right after the operation, I thank God that I had a higher concentration of THC, because pain and knee operations go hand in hand. But I did find that long term, I found that higher concentrations of CBD helped me quite a bit today. And it's been over 5 years now since my auto accident. I found that by being able to continually use a higher concentration of CBD to THC, my body has now got into a point where we've controlled a lot of the inflammation, and that helps control a lot of the pain that really that's out there. So it's something to really take a look at. And I think you had that question that you were asking about the neck and face. The answer is yes. When I was in right after the operation, I could not move my head movement was about like that, and that was it. I had almost no body movement at all. And I mean, I was highly restricted. I looked like one of the monsters, the Addams Family monsters were walking around, because I just couldn't move. I was in that much pain. And I roll that forward now. I'm actually, like I mentioned, I'm taking a martial art. And let me tell you, they move every part of your body. And a lot of that comes from being able to use cannabis to be able to really not only be able to free up the pain, reduce the inflammation, but also the therapy of I'm taking Tai Chi. It's been able to help me loosen up those parts of the body, and it's really helped me quite a bit. So it's not just cannabis itself; it's also working, but not overly working, not necessarily trying to push myself to a pain level, but really help myself both mentally and both physically to be able to do that. I think it's something that's out there. So the answer is tinctures do help. I wouldn't be afraid to use, again, inhalation products that are out there. Anything that has to do with high CBD with some THC in it, lower CBD, will help quite a bit with the nerve damage that's in the neck and in the face that's out there. It should. Let's put it that way. We'll talk about dosing in a minute, but I'd say you got to head in the right direction for that. One of the other questions that comes up, and maybe if you want to take this, please feel free, Saige, or I'll take it. It says, I have ADHD. What terpenes would be best, and would CBD or THC be more beneficial? Do you want to take that one? Or you want me to take that?
Yeah, I can start it, and then you can add to it. I would say, of course, I mean, my answer is going to be kind of the same for each situation, which would be it's different for everyone. I've seen people with success on purely CBD alone. That's more for pediatric patients, I would say. Some of the pediatric patients in certain cases, they do find a lot of help with incorporating THC for the ADHD, but again, that's kind of a case basis. I would say I ask you a couple questions based on, what's the severity of ADHD, what's your tolerance or experience with cannabis right now. If there is little to no experience right now and you're dealing with ADHD, I would start with just the CBD to start, incorporating little tiny amounts of THC, maybe just by inhalation, if that's something that you're comfortable with, or even just a couple drops of THC type tincture or oral product that way, to see if you can find more focus that way. For patients, I haven't seen many experiences with older people or older patients with ADHD, but I do have a good friend, and she has loved CBD, has been taking CBD, has found a lot of help with just CBD alone, but now is starting to incorporate some more hybrid THC strains, and actually very surprised at how quote unquote normal she feels just with the small amounts of THC. So Marc, if you want to add to that, that's kind of my experience with some of the ADHD patients I've talked to. I know as far as sativa and indica, that's again a very personal experience. I've seen successes with both. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think the main issue with ADHD is really to get yourself into more of a relaxed state. I know that when you're in that state and you're hyper and you're anxious, that's where really that comes into play. So I think the higher CBD, that you need to have some THC. That's key. But I think the higher CBD, the THC levels will really help you buy out quite a bit. Now, I do want to tell you, I have ADHD. Okay, have had it for years before they even diagnosed it. I'm a computer scientist. I'd spent 38 years in Silicon Valley with some of the more famous Silicon Valley companies. And I have a lot of friends who were that way. And when my son was getting involved in the business, we took him to a university and he was telling the university professors he had ADHD like his dad. And the guy said, if you didn't have it, we wouldn't want you here because we want you to be able to be challenging yourself on a constant basis. But the problem was getting it to the point where it becomes anxiety and stress. And again, that's where, again, the CBD products can help quite a bit. And it does help to be able to put you back into that state where you're productive rather than in a state where you're anxious and you're spinning. You're not productive. You're looking at different things. You're not finishing projects. You're moving around. You're not concentrating. You need to be able to just tone it down a little bit. And the answer to your question is, yeah, it helps quite a bit. And I go along with what you're saying, pay attention to the CBD levels. But again, it comes from how your body reacts to it. And really, it's important. If you're there, find out what works. Find out what helps. What's out there. We had a question, that came in through the chat. And Sheila asked the question, says, my anxiety can cause sadness, depression, and anger. I don't smoke or vape. I use edibles. How can I create a balance? Saige, you want to take that? I'd love to take this one if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. I can add on then.
First of all, as we mentioned earlier, be very, very careful with THC products. THC products do help to be able to address anxiety, stress, depression. But if you get past your therapeutic limit, it brings it back on. A lot of edibles are very, very high in THC and very, very low in CBD. Again, this goes to where you want to look at the COAs. You want to look at what's in the product themselves. And really, if you're looking at edibles, I would say go down to, instead of just grabbing an edible off the shelf, because sometimes it's very attractive to say, I like that, like the jalapeno pepper. I like hot stuff. I like the mango stuff. Take a look at what's out there. I know that, for example, one of the things I love is that Trulieve makes a 1-to-1 edible, which is really, really good and really, really effective, and helps me during the day because it's being able to take it and have a longer lasting effect during the day. And for me, I'm very tolerant to THC, but it helps be able to address that particular area. I think if I took just a THC only edible, it'd probably make me a lot more anxious during the day than I really want to be. So over there. So I think the issue that you're running into by using edibles is, if you look at the label and look at what's in it, you probably are taking, from what it sounds like, you're taking a higher level of THC. That's kind of perpetuating the problem of sadness, depression, and again, anger. Find yourself some edibles. Again, go to Trulieve, get yourself some one-on-ones to start there, being able to drive those down. And I know that you're going to be working on some edibles that are higher in CBD than THC, and that really can help quite a bit. That's my gut feeling. I think that the product is probably helping to contribute to the problem as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we also have, I was going to add a couple of products onto there. If you are a patient, or if you're not, you should become one. But Trulieve, we also have Cbn edibles. So for nighttime, if you need a little bit extra help sleeping, if your anxiety happens more at night or at the end of a day or end of a stressful event. Also, something that is pretty new to the line is single serve edibles. So I know sometimes, at least for me, maybe I'm alone in this struggle, but for me, when I go to take an edible, you have a pack of 10 or however many come in the pack. I'll go to take one and it's so good. Like, you want to take another one. So the good thing about these single serve edibles, is you have to remember, like, you are taking THC for each gummy, and it's hard. Sometimes, you take one, you're like, I can do another one. So these single serve edibles are really good. I haven't seen any yet that are 1-to-1. I could be wrong on that, but if they're not yet, they will be soon. And it's just a single serve chocolate or edible or anything like that. And it's just one. You buy one. It's obviously lower cost in the store. And it's just something that you can pop in and not have to worry about the temptation of taking more. But I think you're right. The 1-to-1 any ratio. I know we keep saying it with broken record, but it's truly important. The incorporation of both CBD and THC. In this case of not using any inhalation products, I would also recommend maybe looking into something like a tincture, nano tincture, just a supplement throughout the day. You could take that 1-to-1 capsule or that 1-to-1 edible, in the morning, and then maybe by 2-3 p.m. the effects are wearing off, or you kind of feel that anxiety creeping in again, and that's when that tincture can kind of supplement the effects of the edibles as well. So consider doing a sublingual as well, sublingual products on top of
And
that.
also, if you're taking, like, let's say a square of chocolate, or you're taking one of the gummies, cut them in half. Take half of it, because sometimes less is more. As I mentioned earlier, if you drop down the therapeutic, the amount of THC, it can put you back into your therapeutic relief level, and that might be an issue that you're addressing that's out there as well. In fact, you were talking about Trulieve. Let's talk about some Trulieve products that can really help people that are out there. I like to put this picture up because a lot of folks, when you say cannabis, a lot of people perceive that are these people like head shops, and what I found is your places are more like Chico's, more like going to a Macy's or a Chico's than it is anything else. These are high quality retail locations that are very safe, I should point out. I know for a lot of people, especially seniors, the question is how safe are they? They are very safe. They're a lot safer than Chico's, I'll tell you that. But
a lot more accessible than a Chico's as well. There's more Trulieve than Chico's. I would put my life on it.
There you go. But you take a look at the different dosing forms. Here's the different products that match up to the different dosing forms. So tell me a little bit about them, because you have a great product line. What I love about Trulieve is the breadth of your product line that's out there. And again, I'm going to focus. Every one of these products have been tested at least 3 times before they come out on the market. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I that's one of my huge things truly too, is the amount of different products you have. So I mean, in each category, oral, inhalation, sublingual, topical, edible, there's so many different products within those categories as well. So we have actually some in-house brands that we're coming out with. So the concentrates are all going to be a Muse brand. The edibles are all Sweet Talk. So these are some brands that you'll start noticing within Trulieve that we're kind of categorizing these products into. On the screen, you'll see, I'll start at the top. Those are a couple of the edible pictures. So the chocolate, the gummies, we also have cookies and brownies that will be expanding as well.
And again, be very, very careful when you take them. Yeah. Take your square and wait an hour. Seriously.
2 hours.
My God, I love my mother, and we started getting her into medical cannabis, and she loved it, like you said. And after 10 minutes, my Italian Portuguese mother, that has the patience of a gnat, decided she's going to take the second cube and the third cube, and she loves chocolates. And of course, an hour later, I had to get her some CBD to get her back down. So that's the only thing about edibles. They're great. They work. In fact, I think for sleep, to take it like 2 hours before bed will help you sleep through the entire night. I really highly recommend it for that, but use them effectively.
Of course, yeah. That's a product I would say to incorporate once you are a little bit more aware of where your tolerance lies and what dose is kind of puts you in your happy place. That way, it's easier to pick out an edible. I know it could be hard, like you were saying, cut it in half. It's hard. It's good. That's a good gummy. That's a good chocolate. It doesn't taste like cannabis at all. It tastes like chocolate. So it can be hard. You're like, okay, well, Mark, I cut it in half. But it's been 30 minutes now. It's so good. I want my other bite. It's sitting there over there on the counter. So I think you're 100% right. Always proceed with caution. Start low, go slow. Start with something at a very low dose. And if you don't find relief, if you're not able to sleep, if you're still having some of these issues, then slowly increase. That's perfectly fine.
So here's some of your ratioed products in here that you see.
Right. That is the 1-to-8 nano tincture. That one, since it's 1-to-8, it's a THC dominant. So 1 part CBD and 8 parts THC. So that's going to be definitely more psychoactive than what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the 8-to-1. You have the topical cream in the middle, the rosin. That's one of our concentrates to the right of that. Again, the concentrates do need to be vaporized for you to feel the effects. And it is going to be a stronger potency as well. So for those with high amounts of pain, high amounts of stress, and usually, not all the time, but usually experienced cannabis users with that. On the bottom, You'll see that True Stick that me and Marc both showed on camera. Very popular vaporizing device there. It's important to note too, I'll just throw it in here while we're talking about Trulieve. Something that sticks Trulieve out from all the other dispensaries is our one-of-a-kind exchange policy. So if not just device, if your device breaks or it's not working or not charging or not keeping a charge, but also, effects, if you're not finding the right effects that you're looking for, if it's not helping you sleep, it's not relieving that migraine, it's not, stimulating your appetite, diminishing your stress or anxiety, we actually do a satisfaction guaranteed exchange policy. So you bring us back that product that you're not finding relief from, and we will give you 100% of that store credit to go and try to find something else. So you will not find that policy anywhere else. And it's a great way, especially for beginner patients or first time patients, to start out and not be nervous about that commitment, that financial commitment, because it can be a burden in the beginning, especially with all the doctor's appointments and things. So something to know is, there is so many products to choose from and places to start. And what do I do? How do I start? And that can give you some comfort knowing that you're not fully, committed to that first purchase. So
I think that's important to point out, because taking a look at, for example, your nanotechnologies, you have different products, 8-to-1, 1-to-8s, you have your different ratios that are there. If you pick up something, if you're trying it, if it's not working, you try it for a day or two, it doesn't work, you change the amount you're taking, it still doesn't work, you can bring it back to Trulieve. If you've used half the bottle and it's not working for you, you can bring it back to Trulieve, and it's not burning a hole in your pocket by trying to buy 2 or 3 products to be able to try to address your particular situation. And I have to give compliments to Trulieve for doing that. It really is something that makes it very patient-centric to be able to help being able to do that. For a lot of people, especially that's on a budget, this helps quite a bit. That's really out there. I know I've taken back some products that I tried, and after about 3 weeks, it didn't work. I was surprised half the bottle was gone and you still took it back. And I got a product that did work. So thank you very much for doing that. It's something.
And also, adverse effects, if you get something, maybe you get 1-to-1 capsules, right? 25 milligrams CBD, 25 milligrams THC, and it, knocks you on your butt and it's way too much. If it's any kind of adverse effect, doesn't make you feel good. In any case, you bring it back. So yeah.
It's really there. But so you have a number, but you also have the nanotechnology. This is where you've really you have what they call sonification, which is taking the actual molecules themselves and reducing them in size, which makes them easier for your body to absorb them. So instead of taking, for example, taking an hour, maybe 2 hours for the capsule to work, or for the tincture, maybe a half hour to work, it'll work in 15 minutes. It's much more faster active and much more effective to work with your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's there.
A good visual, actually, that when we were first taught about these products when they were first coming out a few years back, I saw a really good visual, and this visual will always stick with me because it's made it really easy for me to explain and teach others about nanotechnology. And you can compare it to the blood-brain barrier being like a picket fence, right? Or chain link fence, I'm sorry. And imagine like a regular oil-based tincture, any other tincture would be like trying to throw tennis balls through a chain link fence. This nanotechnology is more like throwing ping pong balls through the chain link fence. So imagine, you're getting more of that product through, your absorption rate is a lot higher than with a normal oil-based tincture. Sure,
helps quite a bit. Now let's also you take a look at just some of the other ratio products that are out there. I know that I heard you're going to be producing less of the 1-to-1 to ones and the Delta 8 products for a number of different reasons. I have to tell you, I'm a huge fan of them. I'm a 1-to-1 to one fan. It's made my life so much better having the CBD, THC, and the Delta 8. And I understand all the politics and the science and the issues behind it. But my point is that you do have a number of ratio products that help quite a bit. And this is where we talked about some of the different gels that are out there, where you do have the 1-to-1 products that really can help quite a bit. And again, I was mentioning to one of the folks, pay attention to the ratios, and you do have different ratios that are lower than just pure THC itself. That's really out there, and you guys do a really good job of that. I think the only issue that I have is keeping them in stock because they're very popular.
Yeah, and that is something that's being worked on with production. Just to kind of clear up what Marc was talking about, we did slow down a little bit on the production of Delta 8 just because of all of the Delta 8 coming out on the black market and gas stations, smoke shops, things like that. We really couldn't We weren't selling any of ours because that was all out and available, even though there's a huge difference, of course, with lab testing and potencies and things like that. Just for, from our standpoint, business standpoint, we weren't selling it. Now, not to knock the medicinal benefits of Delta 8, I agree with you. And I found relief myself from Delta 8 products. So hopefully, we see a little bit more in the future coming up. But I can confirm for sure that we will be expanding on this ratio line for sure, trying to come up with new technology to extract those specific cannabinoids. And that just comes with more research and development. I think, as all things do. But as you can see, lots of ratio products here. We do have those ratio true gels as well. So like you were talking about earlier, the ratio edibles. So you're not committed to just the THC alone. You do have the CBD to CBN ratio, and one of my favorites is the THC to CBN. That's really good for sleep.
Sure, they're there. Now, what's important is, let's talk about discounts, because everybody loves discounts. But I think more importantly, not only do you have discounts, and you can go over here, there are a lot of discounts that you all offer. Why don't you take us through a little bit of that? Because one of the things I really love is you've addressed the needs of the market, whether you're veterans, SNAP patients, senior patients, you have discounts for all of those.
Right. So we talked about the exchange policy. Of course, that's like my number one. The veteran discount and the SNAP discount, if you receive SNAP benefits, or if you're a veteran, you get a consistent 10% off. Regardless, of course, those are stackable with additional discounts. You can earn points the more you spend. So you can stack your 10% points discount with your 10% SNAP discount and get a 20% off of your purchase. We also offer the 50% off of your very first purchase at Trulieve, and then 15% off your second. Every single time when you're a patient in the state of Florida, if you know or don't know, you have to renew your card. The card to the state is annual $75 paid to the state, and we reimburse that in a discount every single time you renew. Every year you get the same discount. It's $75 off when you spend $150. So it's half off your order when you spend $150, and that's basically reimbursing the $75 you paid to the state. That's a really good one. I do see it on here, the bulk RSO discount. So a lot of patients do find a relief from RSO, especially cancer patients. So this is kind of a different topic, but just shortly, cancer patients, there's a certain cancer regime with RSO, and it requires taking a lot. And of course, that's a different topic for a different day. But this bulk RSO discount does kind of ease the burden on purchasing large amounts of RSO. Senior Sundays, every Sunday we offer a senior discount. Adding on to the seniors is free delivery. So if you're 65 and older, it is free delivery for you statewide. And then for deliveries, to touch on that as well, is if you spend $200 or more, which is easy for a lot of people to do at Trulieve, you get a free delivery. So $200 or more, or 65 up.
You'll have a True Perks program, kind of like your frequent flyer program.
Yes, the True Perks does end on June 30th. That is a little punch card you'll get. So when you go into a Trulieve, you can go in right now, and every $50 you spend, you get a stamp. So if you spend $100, you get 2 stamps, and so forth. And we get 9 stamps. Then you get a $50 basically credit that you can apply to a purchase. So again, really easy to do, not too difficult. And let's say you spend $200, that's 4 stamps, and you're halfway through the card already. So the True Perks is a great thing. Also, if you sign up for text alerts at your store, we do happy hours. So from 3 to 6, you'll get an additional discount. They do daily promos. So there's always a discount to be had.
Yeah. Now you had mentioned something that I think was very important, and that is the deliveries. I know that one of the things that really I compliment Trulieve for is your delivery fee is $15, which is great anywhere in the state. But if you're a senior citizen, it's free. And especially if you spend, like you're spending over $200, it's free. I think that helps quite a bit. I know I live in a seniors community, and a lot of people can't get out as much as they want to, and it's really helped them quite a bit being able to get the deliveries that are here. And I should point out, I know that some people worried about, if I get a delivery, are they going to roll up with a green truck with fly leaves all over it and like the hippie van? And the answer is no. Unfortunately, it's a very anonymous vehicle. It's kind of a white or a light gray, and nobody even knows it's there. It's less anonymous than probably your family coming to visit.
Absolutely. Yep. And I actually helped with deliveries back in the COVID days, when around 420 COVID era, and the online orders and delivery orders were just booming at that time. And, whatever you're comfortable with. I know a lot of people during COVID didn't want any of that contact, the in-person contact, hence the reason for the delivery. So, they'll, drop it at your door, stand a few feet back, and just make sure, that you're home and that you're going to be able to, you look through the window, say hello, whatever you need to do. So that's always good, especially in the time we're living in right now where people are trying to limit the amount of exposure they have out there in public. So delivery is always a great option.
Right. And I think one of the nice things about your dispensary is your pickup policy. You go to the dispensary and y'all are busy. I mean, to be blunt, I've waited 45 minutes to an hour at some of your dispensaries only because you're just busy. I mean, it's reality. But you've come up with a way of being able to, I know that I can actually, when I leave the house, get into a waiting list. By the time I get down there, I literally walk in and wait no more than 10 minutes and get right to a bud tender. That's a tremendous policy. I think that's really, really good to help me with my time and help other people with their time as well.
No, that's a great point. And that's something I utilize all the time. And what Mark's talking about is when you make an online order, after you're done completing the order, you submit it to the store of your choice. You put your phone number in and you're then signed up for alerts regarding your order. So they'll say, when it's ready and all that. And so when you're on your way, you click the link that they send you when your order is ready and you say, hey, I'm on the way. It'll tell you how many people are waiting at that time. So in my case, usually I say, hey, I'm on my way and there's only 2 people in the waiting room. So I'll actually drive there, wait in the parking lot of the dispensary in the comfort of my car and hit, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to go. I'll be third on the list. And then as soon as you're moved up to the next person on the list, they'll send you a text and say, okay, get ready to head into the lobby. You get out of your car, head into the lobby, and not, I would say 2 minutes after that text, you're right inside. So that's another thing. If you don't want to pay the $15 for delivery, or you're afraid of waiting around and that kind of thing, that's always an option too. Is placing that online order through Trulieve.com, and then you can always wait in your car until your name is ready to be called too. So that's a great point, Mark.
Back up. Yeah, you're right. So let's back up. Let's answer. I think we had a couple questions that came out. Linda asked a question you might be able to help with. She said, I recently spent $50 at Trulieve and I did not get a punch card.
So in that case, I would say, if you have your receipt, I would recommend bringing it back in and showing them. If not, they have record of your purchase. So it's not a big deal if you don't have a receipt. But I would just mention it and mention the True Perks punch card. They should know what you're talking about. Maybe, I'm not sure exactly what location you went to or anything like that. So I don't know how I can help there, but if you would like, you could always email me, saige.petzen@trulieve.com, and we can talk a little bit more offline about that, because you should get a True Perks card. It does end on June 30th.
Yeah, it's important to get that card. Just go back and tell them, and they should, if you don't have your receipt, they'll pull it up, but they'll make a hole on that, and that's what's really important. Now, Bernadette asked a really, really good question, and that is, what are the recommendations for decreasing the cravings from alcohol and the anxiety caused from not drinking, for alcoholics, in dealing with a number of different patients, and I'm not singling out veterans, all the way through people that have had car accidents, people that have had traumatic experiences in their lives, people that I know that have had deaths in the family, sudden deaths in the family. And the first thing they do is they turn to, for example, alcohol as a solution. And really the alcohol is really more, they're trying to get relaxed. And in reality, the alcohol does kind of the opposite effect at first. And so the answer is, let's do more of it. Hopefully it goes away and it doesn't. But the answer is yes, cannabis can help people get into that relaxed state that they're looking for. The reason that they're turning to alcohol is probably to be able to just address the demons, to be able to get them to reduce the anxiety, to reduce the stress. And this is where cannabis really can come into play. I've dealt with a number of folks, and a couple of folks I've had, unfortunately, in the last year, I've had 3 people that I knew that I was close to that died very suddenly. And they were like 10 and 12 years younger than me, which that's always comforting, So my point is that dealing with their families and dealing with them, we found that by being able to go into a cannabis regime, by the way, we use myrcene, we use linalool, and we use limonene as the terpenes that we addressed for those particular conditions. And by using cannabis with that terpene profile and keeping it as close to a 1-to-1 ratio, or even higher CBD to THC ratio, has really helped a lot of those cravings. In fact, of the 3 people that I helped, 2 of the 3 have given up alcohol altogether because they're trying to address a medical condition. They want to relax. They want to have their lives be better. And they found this is a better way to go. So they've cut it out altogether. It's out there. So comments on that?
I think, I think it's really important to know, actually, I can sort of relate to this in a way. I won't go into my personal experience, but alcohol actually does increase the feelings of stress and anxiety, even though they're usually consumed to kind of not prevent it, but push them away, push those feelings away, like you were saying. I would say, you know, incorporating THC is going to be important, of course. Everybody's different in their cravings for alcohol, but I do think if you can kind of balance decreasing the use of alcohol with increasing the use of CBD particularly, but cannabis in general, of course, as always, I have to say it, you want to be very careful combining cannabis and alcohol. I would never go on here recommending that. So don't use both at the same time, but in order. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Little known fact, as a cannabis practitioner, I can tell you, people don't realize that when you mix cannabis and alcohol together, it takes alcohol and it 8 times the effects of alcohol, just to give you an idea. And people don't realize that. People think, well, if I just have a little bit of like a scotch with my cannabis, it's okay. That's like drinking 8 scotches, okay? Like eating 8 bourbons. It really does increase the effects that alcohol have on your body. So just be careful with that, okay? And understand that it exists. And that's why a lot of people don't use alcohol with cannabis, because what they're really trying to do is get to a relief state, and it's really helping to not help them get there by being able to do that. It's out there.
Right.
One of the questions, we have an anonymous question of any strains that can help with to help with I can't read
overeating.
My glasses are bad. It's from depression, like overeating from depression. Yeah, that's a good question. I have found in some of the strains, like you mentioned Harlequin earlier, and you mentioned ACDC are really good. A couple of good strains that I see people have had good results with. They're not the only ones that work, but those are a couple of them. You asked for a couple recommendations. Those are a couple to take a look at. And the reason for those is because check out the terpene profiles. Okay, they have very similar terpene profiles that can help you quite a bit with that.
Another thing too, and this is, in my opinion, a little bit under researched, but there is research out there supporting THCV and suppressing appetite. So again, I know there's more research to come about that, and everybody wants to call THCV the weight loss cannabinoid, but do some research about THCV and try to look for strains that are a little bit higher in THCV. That might help with those feelings of overeating.
Yeah, they're finding out from some of the recent studies that are being done that it does help quite a bit with weight control, overeating, and things like that. And it may sound crazy, but also Cbn has been known to help quite a bit with that as well. Just to give you, that helps in that particular.
And there's sativa strains too. Again, be careful with anxiety, but for depression, I think sativa strains too can help kind of lighten the mood there a little bit and help with some of those intrusive thoughts. So from personal experience.
You want to be as CBD leaning, as indica leaning as possible. Let's put it that way. And then on that subject, the question becomes, THC, everybody says, well, THC, it's good for you, bad for you. It's very controversial. Look, THC is really simple. We need THC. Your body, what is your body producing when it's producing its endocannabinoids? The AG2 that your body produces is actually the THC of your body. Okay, you need that to be able to do that. It helps with block the pain signals to your brain, but it can produce psychotropic effects, and this is where CBD helps offset that. But if you're addressing pain, anxiety, glaucoma, epilepsy, diabetes, obesity, delta-9 THC is really, really effective at being able to do that. And I counter that also to CBD, because CBD has also been found to complement THC. And again, it reduces the psychotropic effects that are out there. And it's used very effectively, not only for inflammation, seizures, anxiety, trauma, tumors, but also specifically with MS, opioid addiction. It's been tremendous helpful for that. If people ask, does it help with diabetes? And the answer is yes, it does. High concentrations of CBD do that. Alzheimer's, a number of different things that are out there. So there are studies that are out there. We do know it does work, but these two, and then when you put them together, it actually works very, very effectively. And that's where you get into kind of what's going on out there. And I know we've been talking about this for a bit of a while, but I do want to get into cultivars. I know Saige, when I got in this business 10 years ago, all they talked about were sativa and indica. And I think those are two different looking plants, and one's being known for energizing, one's being known to relax you, right?
Oh yeah. So, and that's what we were talking about earlier about the importance of terpenes too, is, that's been this whole thing this whole time is sativa is uplifting and, makes you happy and has all these kind of generalized characteristics, which are true. And then indica strains, make you more sleepy and laid back and relaxed and tired. And I think it's important to note that this has come such a far way that there are all these hybrid variations, and now it's like there's not really a true sativa anymore or true indica anymore because they've been crossbred and redone so many times. So that's the importance of terpenes. Again, we'll just go back in the cycle is make sure that that the terpenes kind of aligns with what you're looking for, or what relief you're trying to find.
Sure. I mean, the concept of indica in sativa, which again I'll talk about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, really is important. But we now know a lot more about cannabinoids that you see over in here. We know that there are different cannabinoids and what they do. And more importantly, we've learned about the terpenes. And today, a lot of people talk about what they call the chemotypes. They talk about the cultivars. This is something that is, what's the fingerprint? What is it designed to do? What is the expected outcome? And that's a combination of not only the cannabinoids themselves, but also the terpenes. And as a combination together, how do you mix and match those? I mean, I can see the future of cannabis in 20 years of being able to dial a lot of these in for the different medical conditions that are out there. And we're right now on the cusp of identifying this cultivar kind of a concept. And I know that Trulieve has a cultivar collection that falls into that category that really helps you be able to identify particular products that help you with different situations, to help you find that sweet spot that's out there. But I think we're heading in that direction. We're kind of just crossing over that threshold right now, and you're going to hear more and more about that over the next 3 to 4 years. And that's what I thought it'd be important to point out in this particular webinar. But it's finding your sweet spot. We're not going to get into dosing too much today, but I do want to mention it's like finding your sweet spot for alcohol or for caffeine. Go low and go slow. You want to find out what your tolerance is to CBD, what your tolerance to THC that's out there. Once you know that, it makes things a lot easier for you that's out there. I wish when I was in college, I'd learned about go low and go slow when it came to alcohol, but lessons learned in life, right? That are out there. But again, what you have is a situation where you got your endocannabinoids in your body that your body's producing. And you can complement that, and you can reload and you can charge those batteries with the phytocannabinoids, and they both work together when the brain says, your nervous system says, Houston, we have a problem. Your brain produces the endocannabinoids and the phytocannabinoids, and then that helps you be able to produce the products that regulate sleep, pain, pleasure, immune system, and things like that. And you'll hear about synthetics that are out there. You hear about synthetic products. I don't recommend them. In fact, I recommend staying away from them. Marinol is a very famous one, which was developed it was developed to help people with HIV, to help people with cancer, but it was developed to work under the care of a doctor, close medical care of a doctor. So I'd stay away from the synthetics right now. I know that GW Pharmaceuticals is trying to tell us that they've developed cannabis in a jar. You can't put an apple in a jar. You can't do it. You can't put a peach in a jar. And they haven't done that. They've produced a cannabinoid, but they're not the miracle drugs that they say that they are. Now they happen to get FDA approval because they paid a lot of money for that. But I would stick to the natural stuff. It's going to be a lot better for you and a lot safer. More importantly, a lot safer for you out there.
Absolutely.
So and then a lot of people say, well, how does this all work? I hear about CB1 and CB2 receptors. Well, when you have what's the endocannabinoids your body produces and the phytocannabinoids, those are stored in the fatty acids of your body. So when you take cannabis, it's actually stored in the fatty acids. Think of your fatty acids like batteries. And what's interesting is when you have a situation where the nerves say, Houston, we have a problem, and your body starts producing the endocannabinoids, it reaches into the fatty acids. And again, like I say, as a senior, I don't produce as much as I did before. It helps me get that back into balance. I had one doctor tell me one time, anybody over the age of 55 should be taking at least CBD to really give your body the health benefits, the nutrients it needs to be able to go forward. But those are then worked where your body says, I need to produce those endocannabinoids. I have inflammation in my knee. I have pain in my shoulder. I have some problems with my gut. And so what's happening, it's interesting. It produces these endocannabinoids and then sends that through your bloodstream to your body. Hence why we have to be careful with blood medication. But this explains two things. Number one, why the Entourage Effect works. I take it for my arthritis and I find out that my glaucoma went away. Your brain and your body doesn't need a doctor to tell you they have a problem. It knows. And so when it knows, it actually produces the medicine you need to be able to address the particular situation that's out there. And the other is because it's your own natural medicine. You don't have any CB1 and CB2 receptors in the blood, in the stem, your brain stems. So it's not going to stop you from breathing like opioids do. In fact, quite the opposite. It helps does the opposite. It helps stimulates and gets things moving. So nobody has ever died from using medical cannabis, either medical or recreation cannabis. There's never been a known death for that that's out there, and I think that's important. Saige, you have some comments?
Great. Can you still hear me? My earphones died, so I just want to make sure.
Oh, okay. Sorry to hear that. I think we can hear you now. Welcome to technology, right?
I know. Sorry about that. Yeah, but I did hear it, and I think that was perfect. Yeah, I mean, the endocannabinoid system. I'm not an expert on it by any means, and I know everybody's still learning about it every day. So I think this is a great kind of visual, if you're not familiar, to kind of visualize like what's going on in there. What do you mean endocannabinoid? What's happening? This is a great visualization. So.
Right. Now, I do want to point out, let's talk a little bit about dosing, going low and going slow. As I mentioned, I look at it like caffeine, or I look at it like alcohol. And look, I have friends, I literally have a friend who, if he has one martini, he's done for the night. I mean, been that way for a long time. We used to, in high school, we used to love it because he could get drunk on one can of beer, so for literally at that time, less than 50 cents, he was okay. He was taken care of for the night. Hell, the rest of it would take us $2 to $3. And again, when you're on a limited budget as a high school student, I shouldn't say I was drinking in high school, but you kind of looked at it that way. But I think that and I have other friends of mine who literally will drink the whole bottle and just begin to get going. I know that when I lived in Europe, I learned to not drink with the Germans and the Brits. I'm not in their league. I carry their briefcase, but I don't play their game. They can drink a lot more than I can. And it's the same thing with THC. Your metabolism, your body, they're all different. My body is very different from my wife's, for example. And so what works for me may not work for her. And that's why just starting low and going slow. And we have a whole dosing seminar next week, webinar. Please join us, where we talk about how to titrate, how to get to find your therapeutic level. And I think that's going to be very important. I think that really helps you. Getting the dosing right really makes the magic of medical cannabis happen. It's there. So, Saige, your comments on that?
1000%. I feel like I definitely can have a multitude of experiences with cannabis depending on my dose. So, of course, when I first started using cannabis in high school, it was purely recreational, and I'm comfortable saying that on here because I know I'm not alone in that. But that was the thing, is I noticed, different amounts of cannabis use all night, just 1 hour, 5 minutes, definitely played a huge role in how the rest of my night would go, or how my experience would be with it. So cannabis is a very unique medicine and a very unique plant. And I think you can have so many different experiences with cannabis. I know sometimes for me, I'll microdose cannabis and just use kind of small amounts of THC throughout the day. And it takes my pain away, helps me relieve my stress. I don't feel as scatterbrained, but at the same time, I'm able to function. And that's something that I'm a huge advocate for, is being, a functional cannabis user and showing people that it's possible to be successful and be a professional while using cannabis. So that's something that I'm a huge advocate for. I want to be living proof of that. So I strive to do that every single day. And, there are ways to find relief without being incapacitated, so dosing is huge. And I definitely recommend, if you're curious about learning more about dosing, to tune into that next seminar.
Right, but I think that this is something that I think is very, very important, and something you can do. It's not impossible to be able to address that particular situation. Again, you're trying to find your therapeutic relief level, and sometimes, this may sound crazy, sometimes less is more. I know we have this whole thing of, I'll just take more of it and just keep pouring it into my body. I found that, especially when I'm dealing with pain, sometimes just using a little bit less and letting my body taking the time to let my body absorb it and process it is really, really important. Wait, if you're taking that edible, wait an hour. Okay, have patience. As I've got some of my friends say, just be cool, baby, it'll work. It's going to be out there. It's there. But find that level, it's really there. So Saige, we've been at this for an hour and 50 minutes. Let's wrap up a little bit. I think the bottom line here is really, when you take a look at cannabis and anxiety and stress, it will help you. I hope you understand it. Not only will it help you, we're trying to give you the reasons why it'll help you. Not just it'll help you and throw that across the board, but what products will be used, how it works, and something that's out there. You're not going to get addicted to cannabis. That's what's really important. There's no one who gets addicted to it. Now, that being said, I will tell you, about every 4 to 6 weeks, I'll take what I call a cannabis holiday. I'll stop using it for a day or two. My ideal would be to try to stop using it for about 4 days, to basically let my body recharge, because my body gets lazy. If you're feeding it the phytocannabinoids, my body will sit back and go, "Hey, we're getting help. We can get lazy." It really causes my body to wake up and start working again. In my particular case, after about a day, maybe a day and a half, my neck will tap my shoulder and say, "Cowboy, if you don't do something pretty quick, you're going to know I'm here." Okay.
Houston, we have a problem.
Houston, we have a problem. There's exactly it. So I'm not addicted to cannabis. What I'm addicted to is getting rid of the pain. And if there's a better way of doing it, I'd sure like to find it. But for me, it's easy. It works. I know that when I get rid of the pain, I'm in a better mood. I'm a lot happier, that's for sure, and a lot more effective in what I do in life. And I think that's what most people are really looking for today. And you really can't overdose from it. Can you take too much THC and become anxious? The answer is yeah, it can happen. You can take too much alcohol. Same thing that happens there. What's nice about it, with alcohol, you have to just wait it out. The nice part about cannabis is you're in control. If you take some CBD, equal amount of CBD to the THC, literally within 5 to 20 minutes, you'll be back down to where you were before. And I know a lot of doctors, I love when I hear doctors say, well, if you take too much, eat some black pepper. God bless, man. I mean, it does work, by the way. I will recommend that. I would recommend that from a standpoint of it works. I'm not sure that people want to run around chewing on black pepper. But I'm just saying that the best way to do it is really look at keeping a bottle of CBD with you is something that can help you quite a bit. So did you have any wrap-up points that you wanted to go over, Saige?
I did. I had just a couple. First thing, with the addiction thing and just the whole point of people getting off opioids, I think we're kind of moving away from that stigma of it's a gateway drug, or we've been moved away from the gateway drug to, we actually call it an exit drug. We are getting people off of numerous painkillers, prescription medicines that normally, someone will just start out with one pain medicine, and then, like we were talking about, your tolerance, it adapts to that, and they're going to their doctor like, hey, I still have pain, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, oh, here's another one. And then that's when you're getting racked up to 5-6 medications a day, when really all you needed was that one that you were originally prescribed. And then now 6 pain meds later, you're taking 6 pills a day. So I think I'm a huge believer in that cannabis is an exit drug, not a gateway drug, and that you're right, you're not going to get addicted, you're not going to overdose. Not one person has died from cannabis ever, whereas people are dying from alcohol, people are dying from pills every single day, so all the time. So I just think that if you haven't tried it yet, give it a shot. Go out there, look for a good doctor, be an advocate for your health. That's another big thing with medical cannabis. It is personalized medicine, and you do get to take charge of your relief and how you find it, and you choose what works best for you. If that's a capsule, that's a capsule. If that's taking a couple of hits off of a vape pen, that's what that is, or the old-fashioned way with the flower. So I'm a huge proponent, and if you have any questions, we're both here. We can kind of dive into the questions. I think that was next, Mark.
There was one more question, I think, that just came in. Let me look up here. Go here. It was, are there any interactions with taking CBD/THC for someone having ketamine infusion therapy for depression? The answer is you can use both of them together. As you know, if you're using ketamine infusion therapy, you typically are working with a mental health expert, someone that's there. Talk to them about using cannabis with ketamine. They can be used together, and they can give you some tips and tricks and some formulations to be able to do that. It's not my place right now in this particular webinar. I know a little bit about ketamine, but I'm not an expert in it. But I do know enough about ketamine that you do work with with some experts, and they actually, most of the ketamine clinics out there were offshoots from being cannabis clinics as well. So I'd say the answer is not only yes, but seek their advice. Go to the wise counsel of people that know that, rather than we'll send you in the right direction and they'll take you from there, hopefully. And hopefully that answers your question. The answer is yes. How?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are ketamine clinics out there that are recommending cannabis and giving cards out to patients, and helping patients become cannabis patients in the program in Florida. So it's definitely happening. It's definitely out there. People are finding relief, but I would agree with Mark. I would go to the source directly, to those experts, mental health experts and people like that, to ask about your particular case. But it's definitely being done. That's for sure.
Sure. So Saige, thank you very much. I know that we've been at this for a while. My goal with these webinars is very simple. If some person can help get their life back, that's what's really important. And that's what I see. If you can, one person tonight watch this webinar, starts using medical cannabis, and their life gets almost back to normal, we've been successful. And I think that's what we're really trying to do. Naturally, you can get your medical marijuana card at mmtcfl.com. We'll send that out to you afterwards. If you haven't got a card, you need to get it renewed. They have a program for that. But really, use medical cannabis wisely. It's something that will help you quite a bit. And again, dosing and terpenes are really, I think, a lot of the magic to that. Saige, any last words you want to bring up?
Not at all. Only just, if you have the opportunity, stop by your local Trulieve, check out the deals they're having, say hello to your consultants, to your security guards, to your front desk staff. Everyone is super excited to help you, very knowledgeable, and I look forward to hopefully hearing about some of your results and seeing some of your stories about how you have found relief. So thank you all so much for joining and being patient with us and interacting. I thoroughly experienced it. Thank you, Marc, for inviting me. And hopefully I get to do more of these in the future.
Yeah. Well, Saige, thank you very much. Great job. And I want to thank you for your comments. More importantly, everyone that's hung with us for like 2 hours, thank you very much for joining us. I hope, again, I hope this helps. We do this for you. We do here this to answer your questions, and we're really here to be able to try to, through education, really help our medical condition, help us live a better life. And that's really what it's all about. As I mentioned, my goal is to have people that can get their life back. And again, hopefully that's what we're doing for you. And thank you very much for joining us. Please feel free to join us next week for the dosing webinar. 3 weeks from now, we're doing one on pain management. So, I mean, there's a number of subjects coming up that you may find very, very interesting. But I want to thank you as an audience for being able to watch. Saige, I want to thank you very much, and Trulieve for being sponsors. Has been great partners to be able to work together. And more importantly, I think everybody, let's just take a look at our lives, take a step back in this world that anxiety and stress is out there. Let's use the products that can really help us. And let's get back into what I call a harmonious life. And by doing that, not only this through cannabis, but also through physical exercise, and quite frankly, just loving the people around you. So thank you very much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.